Hello there, wrestling fans. I am about to post a video regarding WWE's release of the Rise and Fall of WCW DVD that just came out the other day. And I would really recommend people to buy this DVD because it's a history lesson, and if you're interested in wrestling, you need to have respect for the history of wrestling. And this DVD does not only take you back to the time of the Monday Night Wars, it takes you back even further back, somewhat explaining the territories and what wrestling was back then. So it's somewhat paying homage to traditional old classic wrestling. And I think this could be good for some new fans and younger fans to actually realize that what you see on TV today with a lot of spot monkeys is kinda new. And people today are complaining a lot. I mean, a lot of fans in their early 20s perhaps or below that are complaining a lot, saying that what happens right now is shit, it's crap, and it's not even wrestling anymore. WWE should really tune up the volume and start respecting what the fans want, or at least what the mature fans want. And watching this DVD and studying old wrestling and how it evolved during the 90s, you could actually see that if you want to be really correct about what's real wrestling, I would claim that WWE hasn't ever created real wrestling, if we count from perhaps mid-80s forward. That's not real wrestling. But the thing is, wrestling evolves. Things never stay the same. They change with the times and they adapt. So people get to understand this. People have always complained about wrestling being something it shouldn't be. Listen to Vern Gagne, what he would say. Now he is unfortunately an Alzheimer patient, but if you listen to what he said during the 80s, he thought what Vince McMahon created in the WWE in the mid-80s was completely crap. He thought that was cartoon. And I mean, the 80s were nothing close to a cartoon if we compare to what we got in the mid-90s in the Attitude Era, where you got a lot of backstage segments going on, and that being somewhat of the big the core of wrestling, the backstage segments, the relations between wrestlers, a lot of sexual slurs, racial gang wars, racist gang wars, etc., etc. People would they would call that a soap opera if people back in the 70s lived to see that, and if they got to tell what they thought of the Attitude Era, they would absolutely think that's not wrestling. So people got to understand that times make things change. And what we got right now is gonna piss a lot of people off because they liked how it was in the late 90s, and how it was in the late 90s, well, that will piss a lot of people off from the 80s. Because they think that's not wrestling. Wrestling should be an art form. That's how Cowboy Bob Orton, Paul Orndorff, a lot of old legends would say. That's not wrestling. And if we listen to what people in the 80s thought about what WWE created, some people who were before the 80s thought that the 80s sucked. That was cartoon. That was entertainment, show business. That wasn't wrestling. So you gotta understand that stuff change, and people always have the old pearl that times used to be better. Enough about that, but I think that's a good history lesson. Study old wrestling, see how it changed, listen to what people of their time think of what wrestling is becoming more and more, and how they always tend to want to get back to the old days. That's not concerning wrestling, that's politics, everything. The DVD itself felt like it didn't cover it all, and come on, it's a 90-minute documentary, it can't cover it all. You could have endless of hours of people just talking, telling you stories of what went down, what actually happened. Some of the criticism against this DVD is that a lot of people expected a WWE burial fest of WCW. That wasn't the case at all. No, that wasn't the case. Actually, WCW was portrayed as a real potential threat as a success story somewhat, because it was doomed to fail in the early 90s. It was a sensation that they actually managed to turn that around. Eric Bischoff is somewhat praised, even by Jim Ross. They have a history from the old WCW days, and Eric Bischoff is actually praised for what he did, and people should learn to respect actually what Eric Bischoff did, because he did a lot of stuff what like 10 people before him couldn't do. We're talking people like Dusty Rhodes, a legend like Bill Watts, and a lot of other wrestlers failed, and in wrestling people failed at turning WCW around. Bischoff succeeded, and you should also read Bischoff's book. He's pretty humble after all. I mean, he's somewhat got the right to be cocky. In the end, maybe he didn't do all the stuff right, but he wasn't the only one, and you really get to see what a mess WCW was, a real political mess, because you got people running that company that didn't care. It was some sort of a hobby for Ted Turner. He really didn't know what was going on, and it made the inmates run the show. And maybe you people can also start respecting Vince McMahon, because what he does in the WWE is he has complete control. It was no burial fest. Bischoff was praised indeed. Bischoff was not part of the DVD production, so to speak. They had a lot of footage of Bischoff talking, but that was from 2002-2003 somewhere, when they produced the Monday Night Wars DVD. However, a lot of what Bischoff said was fresh, because it was not part of that Monday Night War DVD, and it doesn't have to be fresh as long as it is from the time after WCW. And I mean, Eric Bischoff's got his fair chance to explain his point of views in the Monday Night Wars DVD and documentary, in his own book published via WWE Books. So he's got his fair share and chance to explain things from his point of view. So I mean, I don't think he would say stuff especially particularly different from what he said back in 2002, 2003, and in his book from 2006. However, you miss Kevin Nash, one of the instruments in the politics back in WCW, blamed for being instrumental in the political story back in the WCW days. Hulk Hogan is, I don't know if this was old or new stuff, but I think Hulk Hogan comes through as a pretty humble guy. I mean, he's been taking a lot of punishment and a lot of spitfire from the fans for being a political bastard, while Kevin Nash have never ever taken that kind of crap. And if you look back at what some of the stuff that Nash did in WCW, you will really realize that he isn't really an angel after all. Very few of the big legends have been angels. So Triple H being a political bully somewhat, looking after his own interest, is nothing new. He isn't exceptional in any way whatsoever. And we also missed Ted Turner in this DVD. I don't really know what he would have been able to contribute with, because he wasn't even there, it seemed like, in the WCW. On the other hand, you get a lot of, it's really great. Bill Goldberg was in this DVD, seems like a really nice guy. And a lot of old other people from the WCW days, now employed by WWE. Of course, you didn't have Sting there, also employed by TNA, just like Kevin Nash, so physically unable to be there. However, WWE has a Sting DVD planned later this year. I think they had it planned for last year, in the end of the year. Now it's planned for the end of this year, and I think WWE is just waiting for Sting's contract with TNA to expire, because he keeps renewing that year by year. So the year he doesn't renew the contract, WWE will be all over Sting to create and produce a Sting DVD, and I think he should say yes, because if he ever wants to chronicle his career, he must have the help of WWE, as they have so much of his history in their video library. So all in all, good DVD, and there is really a possibility for them to create another DVD of this, somewhat the other story, the other side of the story, where they can have newcomers of Bischoff, Turner defending themselves. You can have Nash, Sting, Nash particularly defending himself. So we haven't heard it all yet so far. There is still lots more to tell. But check this DVD out. It's absolutely worth it, and all those great matches from the old territory days and NWA days of WCW are really awesome. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check the other videos out. Have a nice day.